That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Oh, no tears, please. It's a waste of good suffering.
Fairly learned here.
Here we are, reviewing the fashions of Hellraiser, and we're talking about the only human character who was influential enough to make this list. And that is, of course, Julia Cotton. I would say everyone's favorite. She's a huge fan favorite, and possibly the best villain of the entire series, I would say. She's kind of the... she's the spark that really lights Hellraiser in its 8 sequels. You know what I mean? It's her.
Right.
That could have nipped this in the bud immediately. Said, what is that crawling on the floor? Stepped on it and called it a night. You know what I mean? She could have immediately solved the problem. Because if I saw that, I'm just thinking about like Proto Frank. You ever seen Poltergeist 2, The Other Side?
Yes.
You know the part where Craig T. Nelson drinks the liquor bottle and that thing grows inside of him. He spits it out and becomes a weird creature.
Yeah. Yes.
That's what Frank looks like, and it's still terrifying. I don't like that. Like, that bothers me.
Oh my God. It's so weird. It's so creepy.
It's so creepy. It's like a baby, but it's like a weird, like demonic crawling. Oh, I don't like that. That can go outside. That's an outside cat. That's not an inside cat. I'll feed him when he's hungry. But Julia is the most fascinating character out of everyone in this series, from Kirsty to Pinhead, because she actually has a character arc, and she was the inspiration for this series, Ready to Scare, because she actually has a fashion. Her fashion evolves as the movie progresses. She becomes more predatory, and it's reflected in her looks, and it's the most fascinating thing to me.
It's such a nice touch, honestly.
It's so subtle.
Like, to be able to pick up on.
Right? It's so subtle, because when we were first introduced to her, it's them moving into the house. I guess the family house that Frank and his brother, the husband, had before they went off and got married. And she was immediately apprehensive for good reason. Right? Like, I don't want to, can we not be here? To the point where she's putting out her cigarette on the floor of the house that she's going to be living in. Like, she doesn't care. You kind of get a good glimpse of what kind of character you're dealing with. You know what I mean? That one subtle scene. And she looks fairly normal. Hair's, of course, perfect 80s hair. Dressing fairly normal. But as the film progresses and her storyline progresses, and after that first kill, as it were, her sacrificing people to Frank for him to regain his humanity, you can tell she starts to like it in a weird way.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
And she slowly starts to take on this more, how do I say this? She takes on this more warrior-esque appearance. And so originally we see her in this nice flowy white outfit, And so whiteness automatically gives us the assumption that, oh, she's a good character. Like, she wants good things to happen. Like, she's a force of good.
Yes.
But then in Hellbound, I remember the scene where she takes, what's his name? What's the doctor's name?
Oh, Chenard.
Chenard, yes.
Dr. Chenard.
When she takes Chenard to the labyrinth, she is wearing this more dark gray outfit that she has exposed shoulders. It wraps around her neck. She is more like a guiding soul. Like, she is definitely, by this point, just in her outfit, she's like, it's very Siren-esque. Like, come to me. Like, let me guide you to where you need to go.
Oh my goodness, that's a good pull. Is that she transitions to the end of her arc, which is in Hellbound, to, like you said, this harpy kind of character where she's very ethereal. You know what I mean?
Yes.
She has this flowy, I think it's a dark blue, like shoulderless, kind of V-cut dress that's constantly flowing.
Right.
Follow me into the labyrinth. I know you don't know what's going
like
on.
A spirit,
Trust me.
a spirit calling you.
Yes. Exactly. Kind of like of old, like Irish tales, you know what I mean? Of just drawing you in, versus when we first meet her and she's 80s business, woman. And even in Hellraiser 1, as she's killing these men, she's becoming more androgynous.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
yes.
She's becoming that hunter. Her hair starts to slick back and she starts to wear darker shades and power, the 80s lady suits with the shoulder pads. She starts to look like David Bowie in a weird way.
A little bit, yeah.
And she's just starting to get this cold demeanor to her. And even her skin is lightening. Like she's having like a dark side becoming a Sith transformation throughout these movies. Where you're playing like Knights of the Old Republic, and your skin skin starts to lighten a little bit, and your eyes start to kind of crease out.
Right.
She has, and her whole the actress who plays Julia absolutely carries this movie.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? She does. She's the best actor on the set, and without her performance, Hellraiser is not as good. Because you see general fear, enticement, and corruption all in one movie. You know what I mean? It's the coolest thing in the world.
Well, right. And we don't ever really think that she's going to end up being the villain.
Yes. Because, as part of the plot, she has an affair with her husband, like on their wedding night or something crazy.
Right.
They have an affair on top of her wedding dress,
yes,
which is the most disturbing thing I can think of.
Well, even that
to which is something
in of itself, it's her losing her faith, her losing this loyalty that she had to her husband. Like, just the fact that they're doing it on top of that dress, like from a symbolic standpoint in fashion, she is destroying it. She is desecrating everything that she wanted to have with her partner.
Absolutely. I'm just nodding my head quietly. I'm like, preach, sir, preach. She is kind of letting go of that idea of marriage. You know what I mean? Yeah. Completely. She's 100% Frank at that point. But Frank bails out because it's Frank. So now she's stuck with a man she doesn't really love. You know what I mean? She's with him out of maybe it's never explained, out of comfort, necessity,
lust, maybe.
You know what I mean? Or just lust, or just a means to stay close to Frank. You know what I mean?
Right.
And they go into that house, and she starts having her flashbacks of the affair, which is perfectly timed with her husband dragging up that sofa and that nasty gash on his hand. That kind of jump starts the whole movie. That's one good practical effect, isn't it? Oh my goodness, that looked real. Ugh, I don't like it. But then Julia starts to get colder and more calculated with the men she lures to the house to feed to Frank.
Right.
And she's wearing like power suits, and her hair is constantly getting just a bit more, almost like a lion. They kind of mane it.
Yeah, they do. Like with that hairstyle, yes.
And even to go into Hellbound, where now she's in Frank's position as the one who needs to be fed to regain her humanity, I would say, maybe her mortal soul. She really takes on a Bride of Frankenstein kind of feel. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? To her, with all the bandages and the white. It's such a good contrast of the absolute perfect white bandaging, but you see like a little sliver of raw flesh around her eyes. You know what I mean? And her mouth.
Well, even then, she still gives off this sense of power and
control.
Yes, that's what it is.
Like Chenard never had a chance. You know what I mean? Like, she had him around her finger. She had her hooks into him, funny enough.
Exactly.
From the word jump. And I remember this one scene where she went to wipe her eye, and just like a real cut, the blood kind of smeared onto the white bandage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then she got mad and just cold cocked the mirror. I was like, oh my goodness. She's having a conniption. She's having a mental breakdown, but who wouldn't? Because she's still trying to be beautiful under all this. It's the craziest things. Like, she still exudes like a vibe of like almost like
superiority,
sexual superiority, of like sexual control.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? because she's wearing that blue dress that just gets darker and darker as the movie goes along.
She's the vixen of the
And
story.
Yes, she's absolutely the vixen of the story. And I think that her herself is the cornerstone of Hellraiser. And I think she gets very little, she's very underappreciated for those outside of the actual, hardcore Hellraiser group. Like everyone thinks Pinhead, but I'm honestly like, hey, I'm Team Julia all the way. She's such a fascinating character.
Agreed.
We've reached the end of our Ready to Scare, of our critiques of the Hellraiser series. Any passing thoughts, Alejandro, on the series as a whole? Your thoughts on how fashion has been influenced by this film and how this film has influenced fashion?
Let me think. I think it did see a resurgence in just leather outfits, especially for the 90s, especially in Britain, because these are British films, of course.
Yes.
I think it also may
Absolutely.
have shown the essence, what is it called? The S&M community of just different styles of how leather can be used, while also introducing
Yes.
people just to the idea of sadomasochism.
Absolutely.
I think still it was, and I'm speaking more, of course, from the United States perspective, those were still so taboo as topics, and even now are still very taboo.
Absolutely.
But then when you also consider the cultural context of like the HIV/AIDS crisis that was going on in the 80s and the 90s, and then you throw in these sorts of films that people over here are probably like, oh, like those are really freaky. And again, I think that's what lends itself to Pinhead coming off as this villain when really he is not, just because he's associated with these taboo topics of like body modification and S&M and bondage.
Yes. And you make a very good point about Pinhead. I think this is the perfect place to end our series, is that Pinhead in the original 2 films is not a villain.
Right.
He's a means to an end. He is a part of a group that is taboo towards the rest of humanity, of this dimension, right? They're beyond our ideas of pleasure and pain. That's the whole point. I used to always consider them to be kind of like emotional astronauts.
Interesting. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like surfing the planes of experience. They're not angels. They're not demons. They're something else. You know what I mean? They're just like, hey, you called us. We're here. You want to check this stuff out? No? Too bad. You're part of the ride now. And either you would either like it or love it. But those who usually seek them out are the ones who think they love it. And they learn that they're going to love it way too much. And the true villains, like most of really good horror movies, is the human element. It's the people tied into, the circumstances to which they were summoned. May it be Julia, maybe it be Dr. Chenard. They have their own internal reasons for wanting to bring them to the fold. And they're merely doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is granting you the access to infinite experience. Pain and pleasure is the same thing, going back to the S&M community and kind of helping that community grow, because there's so much influence in this movie. All superhero movies owe something to the leather worn in this movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like think of like Matt Damon's Daredevil. That's an S&M outfit.
Totally.
I'm sorry. Think of even Michael Keaton's Batman.
Stephen
he put a little blood on his mouth.
Is an S&M outfit. Totally.
Totally, right? Like the Bryan Singer's X-Men.
Exactly.
Like they're all wearing tight leather, and this would have not have happened if it wasn't for Clive Barker's fascination with the S&M community and bringing it to the forefront of audiences, not just American audiences, but audiences around the world, because this is a globally beloved franchise. And it's just now that Marvel is starting to kind of pull away from the whole leather being the dominant fabric of superhero design. But it's not truly the case, because Cap's suit is leather. You know what I mean? Like, and they wear masks and stuff. And that was, and in the Dominator dominatrix community, masks are a big thing. You know what I mean? Leather masks. And it's just like there's so much influence taken from this film that just kind of like a rock in the puddle Just those echoes will go on forever. And I think that's what makes this movie so important to film fashion, is that after it, leather was all over the place. I mentioned earlier the Matrix. There's so much S&M influence in the Matrix.
There is, yeah. I hadn't even thought about that.
Trinity's outfit, Morpheus for that matter, even the whole community within the Matrix, all the clubs they go to, it's very kind of like neo-bohemian kind of S&M, like Blade for that matter. Like it's kind of nutty. Like how much it all comes back to these Cenobites, to these silhouetted iconic looks that I think will go on forever.
Totally agreed.
Perfect. Where can we find you, Alejandro?
So you can also, let me restart that. You
Go
can follow me at my podcast Twitter. So I am from Peter Porker Power Hour. So that's at Porker Hour on Twitter. Or if you want to follow me in my personal account, that's at Dondro, DONDROO on Twitter as well.
Do it. I heard they have Punch and Pie, guys. You need to get on top of that. They will provide it, man. I love Peter Porker Power Hour because just just a quick. Peter Porker is one of my favorite like multiverse versions of Spider-Man. You know what I mean?
Oh my god, yes.
And also, it's like and when I think of like the Pet Avengers, it just makes me think of like Frog Thor.
Coming to he's going to be in the Spider-Verse film that Sony's releasing in December.
I know you guys are hype, huh? I know you guys must be hype, right? Dude, it's your
eventual goal. Our biggest goal is to get John Mulaney to be a guest star on our show.
Twitter is the best way to do it, man. Just keep bugging him.
Yeah.
Keep bugging him, dude. He will do it. Give him, 10 minutes. They just need 10 minutes of your time, sir. You know what?
Exactly. I'm going
to draw you guys a Peter Porker today, just out of love, man.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to draw it as soon as I'm done. We're done recording, just because I love that character, and you've been a great co-host on this journey.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. If you love this content and you want to hear more, you can always find us on Twitter. That is at mnerdiverse, where you can see the ramblings of a madman. We just talk about crazy stuff and have fun.
Yes.
You can join our community. You can also find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, SoundCloud, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Google Play. Please subscribe. I've been, of course, your host, Mike G. And I will always ask you to look towards the skies. Look towards the skis.